Welcome to another edition of Exhibit Tours, and give a warm welcome to the Minnesota Zoo, a nearly 500-acre facility that features 3 main trails complemented by a handful of smaller attractions. It opened in 1978 and was considered revolutionary for its expansive, natural exhibits. I made my first visit to this zoo last August, and despite the 90-degree heat, I loved it. Which really goes to show just how ahead of its time the zoo was when it opened, since many of the original habitats have largely remained the same, with the exception of today's focus. The Minnesota Trail was an opening day attraction, but although I don't know how much of it was actually changed, it underwent a year-long renovation before reopening in 2007. The zoo stated their goal was to invite guests into the lives of Minnesota wildlife and encourage positive action on behalf of wildlife and wild places. So, let's see how they did. Where the Tropics Trail ends, the Minnesota Trail begins, with an elaborate log cabin-themed entrance complete with a fireplace and tanks for smaller Minnesota natives like the northern leopard frog, who share their tank with the Mudpuppy, a nocturnal water-dwelling salamander. There's also bullfrogs, American toads, and a larger tank visible from both sides for Minnesota turtles. Through a set of sliding glass doors is a nocturnal setting where you may find smaller mammals exploring around a cabin porch. I briefly saw their Virginia opossum, North America's only marsupial, but you may also spot striped skunks or some of the zoo's newer additions, 3 orphaned raccoons who joined the zoo last September. Through another set of doors, the trail proper begins with a detailed, multi-level pond complete with underwater viewing, an ideal environment for the American beaver, North America's largest rodent, who I haven't had a lot of luck seeing at other zoos, but something that usually makes any animal more active is having youngsters. Minnesota's beaver pair, Randy and Gina, welcomed 6 kits in 2022, and I was thrilled to see 4 of them hard at work filling out this dam. Speaking of, have you ever wondered why beavers build dams? Well, aside from providing the internet with entertaining memes, their main purpose is for the beavers' own protection. The dams create deep pools of water where the beavers can remain safe from predators and may spread the water out, allowing the beavers to reach more food sources without straying far from the water's edge. Continuing on, now seemingly underground, there's a second underwater view for the beavers, which flows into a depiction of Minnesota's lakes, whose residents include the largemouth bass and the very attractive channel catfish. I mean, just look at those whiskers. The water's flow doesn't end there, but instead continues with another underwater view before finally trickling to a stop in the habitat for their North American river otters, who on this day were sleeping. Fortunately, we've seen them before on a number of other tours. On the opposite side of the path is a good-sized woodland yard where I wasn't able to spot the coyote. However, I was able to see one of them vacationing in the zoo's northern trail. Switching sides of the path again is another glass-fronted habitat where you can get up close and personal with the North American porcupine, the second largest rodent in North America. If there's one thing porcupines are known for, it's those sharp, barb-tipped quills, which are actually modified hairs. Despite popular legend, the porcupine cannot intentionally shoot their quills, but they can release them once they are embedded in a predator's skin. Protection isn't all they're good for either. Each quill is filled with a spongy, pith-like substance that helps the porcupine remain buoyant while swimming. It's hard to imagine why any predator would ever bother such a well-defended creature, but one species that has learned how to successfully hunt porcupines is the fisher, a large member of the weasel family who lives next door to the porcupines here at the zoo, although unfortunately I did not see them. Continuing down the line is a larger mesh-fronted habitat. Alas, the combination of the sun and the fine mesh made it impossible to properly film the great horned owl and their red fox roommates. Across from these exhibits is the complex's largest habitat, which continues all the way to the farthest point of the trail, the aptly named Wolf Cabin, where guests are surrounded on 3 sides by the gray wolf. The largest wild canid, this very social species establishes huge territories that can span up to 1,000 square miles depending on the availability of prey in the area. Wolves are built for endurance and may travel as far as 30 miles in a single day. After centuries of persecution, attitudes slowly changed in the gray wolf's favor, and they were finally given protection under the Endangered Species Act in 1974. At the time, Minnesota was home to the last stable gray wolf population in the lower 48, although there were still as few as 350 individuals remaining in the state. Today, Minnesota is home to nearly 500 wolf packs and over 2,600 total wolves. However, the species' future in the US is still uncertain. While the recent removal of federal protections may seem like a positive sign, it has prompted many states to resume wolf hunting in large numbers, and some experts question whether populations were really stable enough to warrant the removal of protection in the first place. On the bright side, there is a much larger, thriving gray wolf population north of the border. Next up, there's 2 side-by-side exhibits for the Wolverine, an animal any zoo can brag about having, but no other zoo can say they display 2 subspecies of Wolverines. The Minnesota Zoo has a single male North American Wolverine named Cascade, who I assume is the one I didn't see in the first habitat, while the second exhibit is where I saw plenty of their family group of Eurasian Wolverines. So technically no, this is not a Minnesota native animal, but in this case I think we can forgive the slight inaccuracy. As of 2018, there was only 23 Wolverines living in AZA zoos, but that number might be a little higher now since 7 Wolverine kits were born across 3 AZA facilities in 2023, including 2 here in Minnesota. Wolverines are tough in more ways than one. Their thick fur is hydrophobic and frost resistant, helping them live in harsh environments, which they use to their advantage with their ability to track and bring down prey during severe weather like blizzards. In addition, if any animal can give the wolves a run for their money in the endurance department, it's the Wolverine. They can travel up to 15 miles per day searching for food, and one individual was recorded ascending nearly 5,000 vertical feet in just 90 minutes. Despite their low captive population, I can promise that we will see Wolverines at least one more time on exhibit tours. By the Wolverines is an outdoor porch where you can try your hand at spotting birds and other native wildlife. Back to the zoo habitats is a longer, glass-fronted habitat for a big cat that we keep coming across, the mountain lion. Even if they do seem to be in every North American exhibit that we tour, I personally never get tired of marveling at these sleek yet powerful felines. There's also a good reason for so many zoos to house mountain lions. Like many other native animals, these kitties are getting a second chance at life. The Minnesota Zoo alone has welcomed more than 10 orphaned puma cubs since 1985. While I don't know exactly which individuals I saw, I suspect they were 2 of the 4 cubs who arrived at the zoo between the years of 2016 and 2017. While mountain lions are present in Minnesota, the state's current numbers are not considered to be a self-sustaining breeding population, but this could change with the growing western populations leading to more of these big cats dispersing into states like Minnesota. Speaking of animals you see in every North American attraction, no such complex is ever complete without the bald eagle. This individual was found with a broken wing and lead poisoning in 1997 and moved to the Minnesota Zoo a year later, where she has been cared for ever since. The next habitat contains the other North American feline that I've featured numerous times before, although it's actually been a while since we've had a longer spotlight of the Canada lynx. They'll have to keep waiting for that next, more in-depth feature, but for today, I'll share that in some areas, lynx rely so heavily on snowshoe hare for their prey that their population fluctuates greatly in response to the availability of the hares. Like the mountain lion, lynx are a rare sight in Minnesota, but have been protected in the state since 1984. The trail's final exhibit was added 5 years after its reopening in 2012, but unfortunately, I did not see their trio of rescued American black bears. We may not have seen all the species it has to offer, but thanks to those I did see and the very unique designs, the Minnesota Trail is now one of my favorite exhibits dedicated to North American wildlife, and it seems the AZA agreed with my assessment when they awarded the zoo with the 2008 Exhibit Award for Significant Achievement. Next month, our tours are heading north to the Arctic.